Greetings! Welcome to the third and final tutorial for DungeonBots, where we are going over the most interesting aspect of the game, which is the coding mechanics for the game. So this is the part that everyone is really interested in. So we've gone over the broad overview of the application and the organization of it, and then we've kind of touched on the core gameplay mechanics. Now we want to go into how you actually apply and use code with the existing gameplay system. So you've seen the gameplay systems. Now you should see the coding aspect of it, and I'm just going to bring up how you do that, and then the levels are pretty self-explanatory in teaching those aspects, but this tutorial will kind of walk you through getting started with that. So let us go to the tutorials that actually go into the Lua scripting aspect. So this first tutorial pack is the basics, again, the core mechanics. This is the one that actually goes into the scripting. So this brings up a relatively simple level, but you'll notice that the spot saying double click me and the sign is saying read me. So let's just go ahead and open up both. So this sign, when you read it, tells you that you need to double click the bot to open their command line editor. And then it gives you some code to input to the command line editor. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy that by typing Control-C. And then I'm going to open the bot here, and you'll see that it opens up a window with some intimidating stuff here, but really you should be more interested in this space here, which has the text input. This is the command line, you'll notice. So we are just going to copy and paste that code that sign told us to put into this command line. And then after inputting it in there, we're going to click run. And well, what do you know? The bot moved up. So mechanically, this is enough for us to finish the level, because we know that when we say bot, we invoke up on the bot, it will move the bot up. So if I imagine if we run this a few more times, this will eventually move the bot up to the goal. And one useful thing that this level does is that it also allows you to control this player here. So players are always controlled, or default to being controlled, by the arrow keys. Bots are only programmable. So if we want to see how we move around the player, you'll notice that he'll start saying things, and these are actually the associated method calls that you would use on the bot. The player saying it kind of up above his head. He's just kind of saying it out loud. Like to move him down, you'd say this dot down. So we can try that with this bot here. Oops, wrong buttons. This dot down, and hit run. We'll move him down. So I move the bot down. You'll say the same thing, that this is the equivalent code that you would need to run for this bot that this player is saying. So you can kind of use this to kind of just get used to the things that you would need to code to move the bot. One more trick to this code editor. So this is the code editor window, and you're seeing the output of what you're writing up here. So you'll notice that there's these messages here after we execute code. So theoretically, if I wrote something that was bad, like say this dot up, like that maybe, and then I tried to run it, we're going to get an error message that's just telling us that it's saying attempt to call nil. What that really means is that up with 4 P's method doesn't really exist. So we're trying to use something that what Lua is saying is called nil. But you can basically, when you see red text, that's basically it's just telling you that your code is bad. So, and this console output can also print messages. So I can say hello, for example, and run that, and it's going to print that out there, or down there rather, and also over here. I can also tell my bot to say things as well. So that's him saying hello there. And lastly, and I might have skipped this, but another very useful thing that you can do is you can say up, and rather than press the play button every time, you can type Control-Enter to run code. So the Control key plus the Enter key will take all the code that you have in there and just run it just like that. So one last final useful function to be able to call. Actually, rather than show you this function, I'm going to show you now the code snippets insert pane right here. This is showing a list of available Lua keywords and kind of operations that you might not remember off the top of your head, which is fine because that's what this is for. This is a tool for being able to generate those types of statements. So say we want to have a loop, we want to move the player up 4 times or 5 times. You would use something like a loop or an iterator for that in a programming language. So we haven't gone to the tutorial for this, but I'm just going to show this in this tutorial. We're going to click this for button here. It's going to pull up this little GUI window, and it's telling us for loops execute the code inside of them a given number of times. Think of them as execute this code for n repetitions. So we're just going to tell it to run some code, and I said 5 times because we're 5 spaces away from that goal there. So let's just go ahead and complete this. So we begin at 1, we end at 5. I'm going to click OK, and it inserts the statement, the for loop statement that we want to write, and then we're just going to tell our bot inside of that statement that we want to move him up. So this is we just kind of auto-generated a for loop statement, which is very helpful, especially if you don't remember the exact form that those statements should take. This is going to save you some time. So let's just go ahead and run this and move our bot up 5 times, just like that. Now we should go back to a different level, and I'm going to introduce you to the code-based mechanics for a lot of those gameplay systems that you saw in the previous tutorial. But now I'm going to show you how to accomplish those goals in the code-based environment. So here we have our bot. In the past, we used doors by pressing the space bar to open doors, but now we need a programmer bot to open those doors instead. So this sign here is here, and it's here to save the day. I'm actually going to expand this. So here we have our bot sign here telling us that we can ask our bot to just use up, use down, use left, use right. So we can use things that we're adjacent to or even on top of, which I should probably modify the sign to say. And doors, we can't really stand on doors the way we can on say, keys, for example. So we're going to move next to the door instead. Oops. We're going to say this. So you might have noticed this, but the keyword this is equivalent to saying bot. We have both of those keywords in there, but you can say this.move up or :move up, and this is basically requesting that the owner of this command line is going to move up, which is the bot in this case. And then we're going to type Control-Enter and move our bot up. And then this told us that we could use this code here, which we're just going to copy and paste that and be lazy. And we're going to paste that into there and then run that, and it's going to open the door. So yeah, you just use the thing that you want in the direction that you want to use it. Let's go ahead and use that again, just to show you. And there's also one more way to use things. You can also just pass in the direction you want. Why is this useful? Sometimes it's useful because programmatically you don't necessarily know what direction that you're going to be moving in. So this might in fact be some type of dynamic variable. We would call it a dir. And we could say dir equals up. And then we could tell our bot to use something in a direction. And that direction could be something that could be dynamic, rather than something that you know when you're writing the code, at the moment you're writing the code, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's move our bot up. And another useful thing that I was going to show prior, but I'll show you now, is that you can tell your bot to move a given number of spaces by passing in the number of spaces you want your bot to move into the up function. And you can also, just like in the spirit of what we were talking about before, also tell your bot to move in a direction that is instead a dynamic parameter, and then give them a number of times to move in that direction, just like so. All right, so this sign is telling us that we should grab things by using the grab button, just like that. Or the grab command, I'm sorry. So let's just copy this, boop, and paste that into our command line after we move our bot. I just realized that we can't do that now. So let's move our bot right twice, and then paste that, and run it. And then we grab the key. So now that key's in our inventory. Cool. Sorry, that's kind of loud. I didn't want to close that, actually. Let's go ahead and move our bot down. We're going to move him by this block 4 spaces, and then left 6 spaces, maybe 5 spaces. Let's just try that for now. And then down another 7 spaces. I don't know. Okay. That seems right. Now we read this sign here, and this sign is telling us that you can tell your bot to push this block using any of the following push commands. I need to fix some of the spelling errors / grammar errors. So you'll notice that we have a push that takes a direction and also just a push direction method. So this is, again, the distinction is that there's a method called push that takes a dynamic parameter that is the direction. And then there's also a method that implicitly implies the direction in the name of the method, and then it'll just invoke it on that method. So that's the main difference between those two. So we're going to move our bot to the left, and then we are going to push left, just like that. And I'm going to kind of speed this up a bit since this video is going on a little bit long. So we're going to move over here to the right, and then we're going to go up. And let's go ahead and read the sign here. This is telling us that we can use switches just like that door that we used. So this is actually kind of just repeating this sign here, but instead of using it on the door, we're using it on the switch here. So let's just go ahead and do that, just like that, and we open the switch. And the last mechanic the last 2 mechanics I'm going to introduce involve items. So inventory and items. So we didn't really cover those mechanics in the prior levels, and that's because we didn't want to create keyboard controls for dealing with inventories and items for those intro levels. I'm going to leave that up to people that are making more interesting levels. But it's something that you can do with code, and so these levels actually have puzzles that involve inventory and items in a more meaningful way, other than just unlocking doors. So in this particular case, we're picking up these keys. This sign here is going to tell us that we can look at our inventory, do some stuff with it, and that it's saying that anything that we place in the inventory chest is going to be transferred to the other one. So this will be transferred to there. Anything that I place in there will be transferred there. So that's really the key to solving this puzzle. This bot's locked in this room. He needs these keys. So this bot will collect them. He'll place them into this item chest. This bot will pick them up and unlock the doors. So let's just go ahead and demo that with one of the... I only need to show you one. Then you can basically apply the same concepts to the others. I believe I need to move up more than 9 spaces. Oh, actually, that was too many that direction. This is me demoing the fact that all of the methods that you're invoking, so this is a method, and then you invoke a method with the parentheses. And you can chain the method calls because these methods return the invoked entity. So I can tell it to move down and then left, and it's just telling this bot to move down then left. So, and I'm going to move left 3 spaces. So I invoked down and then I invoked left. And it's just a more convenient way of chaining kind of actions together without having to separate them on a new line every time. Okay, so to place items in your inventory, well, let's first look at the contents of your inventory. That's going to be a helpful thing to do, just so we can actually see what we have for now. So we're going to say, and this is a good time to introduce the documentation mechanic, actually. So we have documentation, which means that if you're not clear what functions you have available to you, the website, like what I showed earlier, has information. The game itself, though, also has the documentation that you want. So you don't necessarily need to go to the website for it. So you can just say help bot or help this, or even just help. In fact, I'll show you this first. You can say help, and this gives you a list of all the globally available things that you can kind of see. And here we have some event listeners that are registered, some print methods, and a bunch of stuff. But really, in this particular case, that's maybe more information than you need. What you really want is just help on your bot, or you want help on this. So you'll just say that, and what this does, and I'm going to expand this a little bit, is it gives you a list of, ooh, that's cool. Someone must have added that. That's a very helpful function. This gives you a list of functions that's available on your player. So you can tell, like I've been showing you, you have all these use functions. Contextually use an object or entity, right, relative to the actor. So what we're looking for is we want to be able to give items to that item chest from the bot. So there's probably something for that. So if we just kind of scroll up, it's in alphabetical order. There's give, and give down, give left. So this is the one that we want. Give the item specified at the actor's inventory index to the entity left from the actor. So we need to know the index in the inventory that we have. So let's see what we have for the inventory. Get the inventory of the player. Maybe we can actually ask help on that. Bot inventory. So here's the functions that's available for your inventory. An inventory is a data type that has functionality supporting accessing and retrieving item types. So we want to, what do we want? What we really want is toString. We want to get a string representation of the inventory. We just want to see what's in it. So let's just do that. So I'm going to call print this inventory toString. And we have one item at index 1. That's one item. It's confusing, but that's because it's kind of overflowing there. Oops. So at index 1 is a key, so that's fine. So if we remember the signature of our give function from earlier, it said that we would just say, we would invoke the method give. We could say left 1, or we could do give left. Oops. No, capital. Give left 1. So this is going to give the item at the first index of my inventory to whatever's to my left, which is going to be that item chest. So let's do that. Okay. And then, hey, you'll see a log down here that's saying an item was transferred by the world. That's interesting. So something worked. Okay, cool. Now for our bot here, and this was all explained in that sign there. This sign explains how to take things. So this is explaining how you would take all the items from the inventory. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do that rather than read all that documentation again to find the take. We're going to go move up to right, or I could do move right. So there's more than one way to invoke these methods. Oops, I don't want to move 2, I want to move 1. Just bump into that wall. Anyway, so we can, another thing that we can do, so we know how to look at our inventory. We don't happen to have access to this item chest inventory, however. What we do have, though, is another function, which I will show you, called, let me expand this some more, called peek. And also, I have to do a lot of resizing a lot in this game, unfortunately. So we can peek. We can peek at things, and what peeking does is it peek at an entity's inventory in the specified direction relative to the actor. What peeking does do, I should probably explain that, is gives you the inventory of the thing that you're looking at. So we can actually look at the help for that bot, or let's say env equals bot peek up, like that. We get something. And what is this thing? And it's a table. Okay, so tables are like collections of things. So the way that you access elements of a collection in Lua is you would say we want to look at that. So we'll just say the first item in that collection, we want to get help for that now. Ooh, hey, we got some documentation. So it's saying it's an item info type, a type that encapsulates descriptive information about an item queried from a peek method. So it's, yeah, so what you're getting is just a list of item information about what's in that inventory. You're not getting the actual item, you're just getting information about the item. So that way we're not just giving you the item just by looking at it. You want to be able to, get information about it, but we don't want to just give you the item because then you just have it and then you'll be able to take whatever you want, it's unsafe. So let's just go ahead and look and see what is in that item. Let's just see the name of it. It's a key, okay? And then we look at the description. And a key that can be used to unlock doors or item chests. Okay, so what we want our bot to do, and the sign talks about how we can use this take method at an index. We know what index it's at. It's at the first element because that's what we were looking at there. But the item also kind of tells you the index of where it's at, and it's the inventory that's contained in. So that's another thing I think that you can see. It's at the first index, so we can. So the item description also contains the information about where it's at in the inventory, which is helpful. So we can say bot take up 1, and something worked. Bot took key from chest 1. So now we have the key, and we can confirm that by saying bot inventory description what am I doing? ToString. And hey, we have a key. So this bot has a key. And then we move left. Nope. Yes, that way. And then we move up. And now, one last thing to show you is how you use items. So how we use keys. So here we're going to, there's multiple ways that we can do it. We can say key 1. So we're going to, this is the first way I'm going to show you how to get items out of your inventory. Key 1 equals bot inventory. There's actually 3 ways to do it. So you can peek at specific things in the inventory, just like this. And that gets you the item. I'm just going to demo that we actually got that item. So the documentation for what these item types are is also interesting. So what you're getting from the contents of the inventory is what's called an item reference, which has a very similar information to the item info, but you have additional capabilities. You can also give items. You can check if that item reference actually contains the item, because believe it or not, they don't always contain things. So once I use that key, I'm no longer going to have it, and I'll demo that in a second. You can get help on them directly. You can ask for the name, and then you can just use them, and you can use them in a particular direction, which is what we want to do. So the other way to grab items, you can say bot inventory, and we can just unpack the contents of the inventory into the variable that you want to get. And this seems similar, you'll notice, to the peek thing, but what makes it different is when you have multiple items. Because when you peek at something, you're peeking at just one thing. When you're unpacking something, say that if my inventory had 3 things, I would say I could actually bind it to 3 things. I could unpack it into these 3 named things and then use them. As opposed to the peek method, you'd only be able to do it one by one. So it's a very convenient way of just unpacking the contents of your inventory. So I can say key 2 equals bot inventory unpack. And then we can confirm that that worked. Sorry. And it worked. Okay, so let us go ahead and use the key now. So that you'll notice that the function, there was a use up function on the key, very similar to what the bot can do. So you can tell the bot to use what's up relative to it, and you can also tell items to do that too. And items will then be applied to the thing that they're that's up relative to them. So we're going to use the thing that is up from the key. And it's key 2, not key. Sorry, I was giving them numbers. Key 2, use up, and boom, it unlocks the door there. And now, let's look and see what's inside key 2 now. Key 2 name is empty. How about key 1? I gotta return it, not just call it. Key 1 is also empty. So those are both variable bindings to the same thing, and it's heartening and makes me feel good to know that that works. And what happened was we used the key, it got consumed, we no longer have it, and so this thing that we call key is really just a reference to a thing, a location in our inventory. And when we used that thing in our inventory, it got consumed, and so when we're asking for the name of the thing that's in our inventory at that location, it's nothing, so it's empty. So that's what it's saying is that thing that we call key is actually now it's empty now. So anyway, and then lastly, we can just tell our bot to use the door that's up relative to us, and it unlocks it. So this is, sorry if that was loud. The core mechanics now explained in how you would achieve and play the game purely using code. I've demonstrated that. And you've seen an additional gameplay system that involves items and inventories. You've seen blocks, you've seen switches, you've seen doors, you've seen pushing things, pushing them into pits, moving the player around. With all that functionality and with the existing Lua code that is available, you should be able to make and play all sorts of different types of levels. And now I'm going to demonstrate one last thing, which is the editor, how you might make these levels. So let us go to that level, and I'll just show you what that looks like. We're just going to go back to that same level and maybe fix some of my grammar errors, spelling errors. To use doors and bit. One of these had a spelling error. I'm going to find it. Anyway, I'm sure they all have spelling errors somewhere. So this is the editor window. From here we can, well, I've actually not demonstrated another ability that is available in all the levels, which is the ability to zoom in and out of the game map. And you can also pan. So I apologize for not showing that sooner. I just kind of took it for granted. So from here you can place tiles, which are kind of like walls, floors, things like that, just by clicking on the tile that you want and then just drawing it in the map. I can make this map unsolvable, just like that. Just that easy to make it unsolvable. I can delete things. So I can delete the goal, also make the map unsolvable. Delete a couple keys. I can place entities. I can place players, bots, blocks. You can make signs by clicking on them and saying this is a sign. And then that is now in fact a sign now. So that is true. You can place treasure around the world. You can place chests. You can place doors. So the way that you go about modifying things as the author is typically going to be through the command line. So I place a door. It defaults to being open, and so you're going to ask, well, how do I make a map with a locked door? So let's just go ahead and take a look at that. So as it turns out, you're going to use the command line as the author about as much as the player. For this door, doors are what's called actors. So they have all these functions that actors have. Plus they have their own unique functions. So they're going to have, like, doors can do anything that... They're very similar to bots, which is kind of funny. You can make some funny levels if you wanted. You can also lock them. So they can do things where you can lock the doors just like that. Or this lock. So if you wanted to have a door that was locked, you would just from the command line console just tell the door to lock itself. Just like that. And that's really... With these tools, this ability to place entities and access the command line console for the entities as the author, you have the tools to be able to make a lot of interesting content. Like the way that we are programming the switches, the actions that the switches do is with writing scripts that register actions that occur when they're, in this case, this action gets invoked when the switch is used. So when the switch gets used, it sets these tiles. I actually do have one more thing to demo. I apologize, this is going on a bit long, but I realized that I need to demo scripts as opposed to running code from the console, the command line. So scripts are subtly different than just running code from the console. So how scripts work, I'll just demo that right here in this bot groups level. So here you have 4 bots, and you can only really select one of them. So the way that scripts work for bots is that you just write some code, and you can't really run it from here, you'll notice. So this is what's called the scripts pane. It's not the command line, you'll notice. So I can't just run it. So if I say up 5, make all the bots move up. So this is going to tell you that scripts are invoked, they're run from the start of the world. So the world will get reset whenever you start running the scripts, and then it will start executing the execution of the script that you wrote. So in one go, your script has to do all it needs to do to finish the level, which is different than the command line. The command line, you can just kind of keep on writing code, and eventually you can have it get to where you want to be. Whereas scripts they run once, and they have to do everything they need to do to finish the level in the one time that they do run. So otherwise, when you run it again, it's just going to start over again. So that's the main difference between scripts and programming the console. So you'll see that I said move up 5. When I press play, all my bots are going to move up 5 spots. And that's it. I got to restart the map and then run my script again if I want to. So if I want to fix this, what I really need to do is modify my script to actually do it right. And this will finish the level. So thank you for watching this. This one has been a bit longer than the other tutorials. I apologize, but we have a lot of features and functionality. So I'm hoping that by now you feel confident in getting into the game and just start playing and making content. So I've introduced the core game mechanics and then the scripting mechanics. And by now you also have a very concrete understanding of the core feature set of the DungeonBots game and application. So it's been fun making these tutorial videos, and I hope that you enjoyed the game and can make some fun, interesting content. Thanks for watching.